David,
I don't want to see our names in the paper.
you saw the
I'd rather on air on.
State Attorney General found a violation of the open meeting law for the
good?
Finance Committee. Am I done? Did I do it?
Yeah.
Just hit start.
Yeah, you're good.
Thanks, Caleb. Thank you.
They were pretty bad, though. I mean, they.
It was ridiculous.
When someone says, "Are we off?"
Yeah.
Hey, let's talk about this.
Yeah, outrageous.
That's,
The worst kind. All right, we're going to open our meeting at 7 o'clock. The Board of Appeals on June 14th, 2022. We're going to talk about the bylaw, some of the applicable cases, and then we're going to elect officers for the coming year. So, where should we start? How do we want to do this?
Let's do the bylaws first.
Okay. If you want, I'll lead the discussion, and you just question, but I don't have to. We can do it any way you want. I don't really care.
well, I have one point that maybe to jump in on.
Okay, the first thing though is, these things are subject to interpretation a lot.
Absolutely.
And we can all have different views on them, both on the law, because it's confusing and it's subject to different views, and on the facts. And we don't need to come to unanimity ever on any of our decisions. We have not turned down a special permit or variance in a long time by vote, because usually when, we do the straw poll, the people decide if it's gonna go against them, they're gonna withdraw without prejudice and maybe come back to us. Otherwise, it's, I don't remember now if it's a 2-year period for both special permits and variances. It's 2 years for variances. I think it is for both, before they could come back again with something substantially similar. So it's not often we've actually gone to a vote where we deny relief, but we have done it in the past. I don't think on this present composition. Al, maybe, I don't know. Do you
I don't think,
remember?
no. I don't think we
It's
did.
been a long time.
Have we ever had anything filed against us?
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. The way the suits work is, of course, we're protected by the town. The town stands behind us, but normally, it's neighbor versus neighbor on these things. So we have to be joined because we're the party granting relief, and we'll all get sued individually. You'll get a registered letter or.
Yeah, we did get sued, you're right.
Yeah, we'll get served, but then town council defends us and files an answer. That's the first thing you have to do. And we sit back at that point. It's the neighbors that end up fighting it out and spending the money. And our town council just sort of sees what's going on, and once in a while will let us know. 99% of the time, we never hear about it afterwards. Whatever happens, the neighbors solve it and get together, because they're spending money on the thing. So yes, we have, not for quite a while. I think the last one was the house behind the house down there on Bank Street, or the road off of Bank.
Oh, yes, up and back.
The back house
Yeah.
wanted to put a second story on. The two front houses, it was like on a flag lot. The two front houses had done that, but now they don't want the neighbor to have one.
Oh, jeez.
Because one guy's afraid they're gonna go up to the upstairs window and look at his wife sunbathing. And you have to fight to keep a straight face. You're thinking, huh?
Probably been to a beach.
I don't know, I mean, I don't know what his wife, what her appearance was, but regardless, you think, what, your neighbor's gonna go up and do that? Come on.
That was Braddock Road.
Yeah, so that went to litigation and never have heard since. So, yeah, we've had maybe,
So I'm guessing you guys voted for them to be able to put the second floor, and then they sued you for that decision?
we granted a special
Yeah,
permit.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there was no basis on which to deny it, but the neighbor didn't like it, and, they were willing to spend money, so. A lot of times what they're trying to do is wear down, the successful applicant, because it does get expensive.
Could have taken that money and taken his wife on vacation.
Yeah. We had another one down and it was a similar complaint. They wanted to expand it. It was down, gosh, what's the name of that neighborhood? It's a residence only off of Lower County, way down towards the Dennis line. It's a really high-end neighborhood.
Yeah, West, I know.
I
what you mean.
Is
can't
that
think
by
of
the
the-
gun range?
What's in it?
Is that by the gun range?
No, this is
Low-
down in
Lower
Lower
side.
County.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Lower
yeah,
County
yeah.
Road, way down in West Harwich.
Way down, when you're getting down towards the Belmont there. It's not quite that far, but it's a residence only, mega houses in there. And the guy wanted to expand, and again, the neighbor's wife was gonna sunbathe, and that was one of the arguments, oddly enough. And they litigated, because we granted the special permit, and finally, the two of them worked it out, because we did get notice on that one. Anyway, all right, why don't we start with, well, you can see on these things that I sent around, I excerpted parts of the bylaw that we commonly need to look at on these cases. And our jurisdiction principally is on special permits for non-conforming structures. And of course, we do all the variances. The planning board also has jurisdiction on all other special permits other than non-conforming structures. So that means what we have to look for in the statute, or look at first, is 32554, non-conforming structures and uses. And I forgot to put under it's on page 10 there, that little thing I sent around. Before that too, there should be a capital A. That's 32554A, which is a B also. The 2 and 7
So which one was that
A.
that you sent around?
It's,
Commonly used provisions?
yeah, 32554, non-conforming structures and uses.
Yes, here.
How long ago did these cases come forward?
I'm sorry?
How long ago did these cases come forward that changed all these?
Oh.
Was it the 80s?
No, it's only really 2000.
Borland was 2008 and Comstock was 2020.
So what was it like before? Were you guys on the board before then? Because these,
Yeah, I've been on the board since 2009.
so I would gather that, I mean, these cases must have opened up a lot of doors for a lot of opportunity for change. So before then, what was
Well,
it like?
absolutely. I mean, I was on a zoning board in Berkeley for several years, in a few years in the 80s. And then it was just, you're really looking over variances. Majority of the cases were all about variances. And that was, you know, somewhat fairly straightforward all the time, because it either, you know, was or wasn't a lot of this case. I mean, it seemed very clear cut, you know, and so, you know, with the new, these cases now, you know, it's a whole new ballgame regarding understanding things,
I
but
think the two, well, I said those two cases, and we'll talk about them in a minute, but before them, the earlier cases that were really kind of monumental were Gale and Deirdre. They changed the whole landscape. And under 32554, before that, a lot of times you could not get a special permit, you had to get a variance. Well, that's all been thrown out by these two cases. And basically, when we're talking about a single or two-family residential structure, that's what 32554 covers, and that's what those two cases cover. The only requirements for the special permit are that there's no new nonconformity. You have to intensify a pre-existing nonconformity. And the new project, I'll call it, cannot be substantially more detrimental to the neighborhood than the existing project. That's the only requirement now for a special permit. And 32554A in little, in 2, in little ABC, it talks about some of the additions or extensions that would increase the non-conforming nature of the structure. So even though it's the same footprint, you build it to an increased height. Or same footprint, but you're adding additional habitable floor area. Or you have one of the lines into the setback and you're going closer to the boundary. That's the one that comes up all the time.
Yeah.
They're, 12 feet from the setback, from the property line on a 20-foot setback, and now they want to go to 2 feet. Well, that's an intensification. So again, is it more detrimental? My personal view is, and one of the cases here, I mean, we've got a list of examples. You rarely see them, but I guess if you had a whole neighborhood of historic houses and somebody wanted to put an ultra-modernistic house, yeah, I think the board could take the position that destroys the character of the neighborhood and will be substantially more detrimental. But in 13 years, we've never held a single project to be more detrimental. Because you think about it, most of them, what's the real detriment? It's going to decrease the property value. And there are very few things that are happening here when you drive around and see these
Jesus.
that are decreasing. They're always increasing the value of their house and everybody else's. Because I mean, hell, to do a deck is 20 grand nowadays, let alone some of these things. I mean, some of these projects must be $1 million or close to it, especially where they're doing a tear down and now they're going to do the McMansion. You think, holy mackerel.
Well, that one on Croissant, there was actually one that had a shed that they wanted to put a garage in. That thing there wants about $7 million. Right on the water.
That's
That thing was
Quasson Lane.
Crossing.
Quasson.
Yeah,
Quasson.
Quasson. Yeah, that was probably 4,000 square feet.
Well, and even the ones, anything below 28 down there in the old campgrounds and whatnot, you look at these tear downs, and even if it's not a mega house, the detail and the amount of money, it's mind-boggling to me, but what do I know?
But those pre-existing nonconformities, particularly the campground, like Dave said, that's amazing what is, viable down there. Can't do it in other neighborhoods.
So before Gale, if you got something in the campgrounds, and they wanted to rip it down, put it back up, maybe extend something here and there, they had to go through a variance?
Well, because before Gale, under 32554A, 5, okay. A lawfully pre-existing non-conforming single or two-family residential structure may by special permit be demolished and replaced with a new structure, provided that A, not substantially more detrimental, B, the new structure not cause or contribute to any undue hazard, not increase any of the following existing nonconformities: building coverage, site coverage, or setback encroachment. Well, those are all intensifications. So what that required then, because most people couldn't meet that, they want to make it bigger, they'd have to get a variance before
So
Gale.
this has not been changed since Gale, this was the existing.
No, but the only thing that's,
324, 54, 5.
the only thing that's applicable now is A.
Yeah.
The rest are no good.
Didn't it used to have to be a demolition and replacement on the same footprint? Back before Gale?
No, it didn't have to be on the same footprint.
I think there was some communities, though, you had
If
to
it was
leave a
on the same
wall up.
footprint, that would have been back under the one we just talked about, 2, where if it was on the same footprint and they weren't, creating a new nonconformity, like going over the height restriction, then they could get their special permit based upon no substantial detriment. But what Gale changed was this other one.
They could push the line.
Where they were actually going to intensify building coverage, site coverage, or setback. So
Sure.
that's all gone now.
So after Gale, we can, within reasonable guidelines, reasonable parameters, go beyond what their existing footprint is, but you can't. Like we have in some cases, let them go up to site coverage or building coverage by 10%.
As long as it's not substantially more detrimental. And that's what Brian has been coming back to, that concept of how much is substantial. I don't know. To me, when you go down through these neighborhoods, you'll have a little house, you'll have a mega house, so how can you say somebody, making a big new structure is more detrimental than the ones that are already sitting there?
Well, it probably isn't at that point, but,
Well, that's why we have to look at the drawings, and that's why, our cardinal rule is, notwithstanding Attorney Crowell's position, there is no precedent. Each case, because the facts are different,
Right.
we need to look at individually, and yeah, maybe we did grant a variance under similar circumstances, but it might not be substantially similar, or exactly the same case.
I mean, if Quasim Lane had been built before everything else had gone up like that, then that would have been like,
Well,
whoa, okay?
Quasim Lane was, they had a pretty big property. So other than the fact they were on the, as you're facing the ocean, the left side, were you guys on the board then?
No.
It was it's actually down a dirt road, it doesn't have, you had almost like a driveway,
There was
a
a
long
lane,
driveway
right.
that goes by another house, but they were right on the water, little bluff, right, one of those things on the sound.
That was a big site.
On the left side, facing the water, that was like within 10 feet of the property.
Right, it was the other
Within the
side.
house next to it. So it was pretty tight. Everything else, they had plenty of room to go forward, go back. It was the shed that was the most controversial
Yes.
on that.
Right, and
that
that's,
one.
as a Supreme Court justice once said, that he couldn't define pornography, but he knew it when he saw it. To me, I voted against it because, a 120, 104 square foot shed going to an 800 square foot structure, I thought was like, okay, enough's enough. I mean, that's what it,
Okay,
That's what did it
But
for
on
me.
the other hand, so what? He's coming into his own property. with
Well-
that. He was going, matter of fact, I think he was further away from the fence, a little bit.
Sure,
But
I
he was
understand.
Further away, but he was going into his own property. He was putting a garage in, which makes total sense for a property like that.
well, yeah,
Everybody else has-
I understand. I mean, to me,
We're debating it, that's all I'm just throwing it out
right,
there.
to me, and this is why we're here tonight. I mean, to me, it was, you go from a shed where a guy put in, a couple of lawnmowers, and now he's got a garage, which is now a different use than a shed, all right?
Clearly.
And then on top of that, building, about a 600 square foot area for a living unit. And so I looked at that as being basically a new nonconformity in my eyes.
well, actually, let me just interject here because that gets to the next point.
Right.
Which I think is, we've had a lot of discussion on it. But if you look at 32554A7, alteration or extension of other structures. And they first start with A pre-existing non-conforming structure other than a single or two-family residential structure may be altered or extended by right if the building commissioner finds so on and so forth. But then little b is the key one. All other non-conforming structures shall require a variance for any alteration, extension, or
Well,
reconstruction.
I'm not, I'm missing that.
So B is anything doesn't fall under A.
Yes.
That's
If it's
all other.
not- If it's not a residential, single, or two-family structure.
No, A is already given that priority. A already says a pre-existing structure other than a single or two-family residential structure. So already under A, it's not a single or two-family structure. It is something else.
Yes.
And
And that says
then
then of right if the building commissioner finds,
that 1 and
so on
2.
and so forth, you're right. But then, all other non-conforming structures, you need a variance for, and that's what I was arguing about the garage down there on Parallel Street. But The complication now comes with the Borland case.
Borland is,
The one BJ, I guess that's how you say it. I guess, I'm assuming the J is silent, I don't know.
Auckland?
Borkland, I guess it would be. But that case, the court says, as a matter of law, which is unbelievable, certain small-scale alterations, extensions, or structural changes to a pre-existing, now it says house, but it's not talking about a house, it's talking about a garage, are illusory. And then it said these can be done of right without even a special permit. And then it gives the examples. The addition or enclosure of a porch or sunroom. Okay, we've seen a lot of those lately. The addition of a one-story garage for no more than 2 motor vehicles. The conversion of a one-story garage for 1 motor vehicle to a one-story garage for 2 motor vehicles. And addition to small-scale proportional storage structures such as sheds, swimming pool heaters. So they're saying those not only don't require a variance, they don't even require a special permit.
So where is that within it's in this, right?
That's in the Borland case.
Yeah, I'm trying to find it.
It's,
That-
um,
I read this a few.
Auckland.
Borkland, it looks like page 5.
What, I have a question with regard to, let's see. Small-scale alteration, extensions, or structural changes of pre-existing house are
Well, they said house, but they're
What?
talking about a garage here,
Right, I understand that.
which is,
But what's small scale?
well, that's, they give
Great
me
question.
examples, and that's why we need to discuss it, because I don't know, it's not online. They give some examples, and this was my point on the first iteration that Attorney Kroll presented to us, where it wasn't just gonna be a 1 or 2 car garage, they were gonna put all that room up with a deck on it.
Right.
Come on, that's not a small scale alteration. And that, in my opinion, required a variance.
So small scale in reference to what it was before they wanted to do it. Can you define it that way?
I would look at that, and to me, it's gotta be, look, if it's a garage before, it needs to be a garage afterwards. And I was willing to, give them the special permit for the storage, with the proviso that if they wanted to put AC or heat in, they had to come back to us.
But when it's a garage before, and only a garage, we allow for the living unit on the second floor in many cases. So now it becomes a habitable unit.
Accessory apartment.
No, because
There's no, if they don't have a kitchen in
no
a,
kitchen, there
I
was,
forget whether that one had a kitchen.
no.
no, it didn't, just
Just a bath.
just had a bathroom.
Bath and a bed.
It did have a bathroom,
did a bathroom. But
we took away the deck.
does it now become a habitable building that happens to have a garage?
Well, it's
Yeah, I just,
So let's go back to the,
not supposed to be
Quasin.
habitable.
Quasin, we allowed him to put a garage with a habitable space. I don't know if that had a full kitchen, but it certainly had a, yeah.
I don't recall it having a kitchenette.
Had some,
I think so.
Did it have a kitchenette?
Didn't it have an apartment in
A
it
hot plate.
before?
they did not. I mean, it was a shed. It was a 108 square foot shed.
Was
You
it?
measured it.
Yeah, it was a
Okay.
small little
I
shed.
measured it too, saying, okay, what the hell's going
And
on
it
here?
was because if it's less than 100, you can put it within 10 feet. So
You know-
it was more than 100, therefore it was already in violation.
You know-
So it was already out of zoning.
When I left that meeting, it then occurred to me, I wish I'd asked the question, can you show me the original permit that allowed you to put this shed in that location, so close to the lot line?
Were they the original owners?
No.
Yeah, I'm sure they didn't have a permit.
That shed
They
had
just-
been there a while.
They just.
Well, no, I'm not disputing that, but, I put a shed in a few years ago. I mean, the building inspector came out and he approved it. He didn't go out and measure that I did it I put in a larger shed within 20 feet of the lot line, all that kind of stuff, or, outside of that was a 25. But, so it could have been off, but he might have approved it, okay? And now you get, years later, something that's been there for a long time, or they just got approval and they plopped it down there and nobody checked it.
I think on that one there, the one, if I think about why would I have approved that? It didn't, I mean, it did not change anything as far as detriment to the surrounding area.
But it needed a variance, really.
So
And
that's, so
I'm
that's.
sorry I voted the way I did. I made a bad decision on that.
So that one there, we
You're
took.
I was the one and only.
We took a shed, well, right or wrong, right? We took a shed and let them put a garage in with a habitable space. And then recently, we told them we allowed that. And then we allowed them to replace the garage with the garage. That just happened. And then,
Not there.
No deck. They removed the deck.
yeah, but they removed, but I'm saying, it's a garage with a garage. They have an unfinished storage area,
Yes,
that was it.
unfinished storage.
I'm sorry, what are you on now? Which case?
The one we just did there.
Okay, all right, thank you, all right.
What was it, Cross Street? or-
Pleasant or
Cross
parallel,
Street.
one of them.
Cross Street.
Cross Street?
It's
Okay.
on Cross Street.
And then the woman off of, near you,
Wait,
Hoyt,
the corner.
she couldn't even, all she wanted was take a garage and take a wall down. She would have basically left the same basic footprint of that garage, take a wall down and put a grill in it.
You want to take the doors off.
Yeah, take the doors off, make a little grill area, which was the least obtrusive of the three, and we didn't allow that.
Yeah, that's one I wanted to bring back up, because I go back over that thinking, we don't allow her to make a little bit of an open area in that garage, but we allow a lot of habitable space on the second floor. So that case, I mean, to me,
So to
now,
me, it
after
sounded
listening to
like
everybody that night, I went along and I agreed, and I voted when, you know,
I did too.
okay, after I listened to everybody, and then go back and think, okay, wait a minute,
we never voted, she pulled it.
Yeah,
she pulled it, she
And
pulled
then she
it.
came back and never
But the
introduced
straw,
it.
that's
Never
right, the
voted.
straw situation was, it was probably going,
I would have
actually,
voted for it.
yeah,
I would have voted against.
Yeah,
I wasn't too sure.
Variance, because what if she was
I would have voted for it too.
It wasn't a garage anymore.
Well, I know
So
that,
you can't ban it.
but when things become habitable living spaces, it's not really a garage anymore either. I mean, it is, but it now has taken on a new conformity.
Tell me why,
But is that what you're trying to prove, Dave, is that there's perception can vote contrary to each other, right? So that's what you're trying to say, is you're both right for voting for it and against it, and that's the.
Oh, sure, yeah, absolutely.
We're given.
Right, if two vote against it, it fails.
but if you look at the law, we've got this guideline 7,
Right?
and we have, is it the Borland case?
Yep,
Auckland-
Borland case.
Auckland case. What should we have done in all three of those cases? So a garage can be replaced with a garage. That's probably pretty straightforward. Take a garage, rip it down, build a garage in the same spot, make it a new one.
What I'm picking up is we can't definitively answer that question. Based on
We have to.
based on perception.
Well, the courts say it's open to
Well,
interpretation.
we have to have at least an understanding of why we made these decisions, so it guides us in the future decisions.
I hear what you're saying, but it sounds like you can have your perception based on your reading of this and your looking at the building.
Correct.
And Dave can have a very different perception based on his observance.
And my question was, show me something in the law that says I was wrong by letting that woman have a grill area as opposed to a garage.
You were right and wrong. I mean, I hate to say it, but I feel like we're determining neighborhood aesthetics, right? So, and there's different perceptions that do that, and the laws give us enough leeway to go one way or another.
I can clearly say not putting a living space. That's like putting an accessory house.
Your plumbing, your electricity, your.
All that's, I mean, that's just clearly going above and beyond what this, but a shed
Well,
where we have another shed that you kind of put a grill in, and then you have a garage and you have a house, which the last one, the one on Quasim was, let's face it, that was a house.
Well,
Somebody
yeah,
lived in that thing.
absolutely.
Right,
Yeah, that's what it
so
was.
that was the one we, I don't remember the details, but probably
It was a
shouldn't
bad
have approved.
decision. That was a bad decision.
Possibly.
We should never have approved that.
The only
We should
thing
never
is,
have voted on it.
only one neighbor, the next door neighbor came and complained about it. Nobody else showed up. I think the neighborhood that came out with, you know, with pickets and everything else, we might have thought differently as a
It
group.
was gonna be a nice addition, but that's not the test, really.
Yeah, I
Let me
understand.
ask you this, Dave, with regard to a garage. Oh, very vague on this one. If you're a woodworker, and you want to make a woodworking shop inside your garage,
Oh, great question.
It sounds a lot like the grill, actually.
yes.
If you're not gonna make any change or alteration to the garage itself,
Well-
you gotta go to the use table and see if it's allowed in the zone. If it's allowed in the zone, the building commissioner, not gonna have a problem.
Well, you can do your
It
own
won't, it won't
party.
come before us.
It's not a business, it's just some guy doing woodwork, you know?
That guy wants
We
to,
can do that.
Why can't you,
If it was, I thought you meant for,
Well,
as a
where I was gonna
business.
go with this is he has a double-door garage, but because he's moving lumber around, he takes the garage doors off and puts an overhead door on. That was one of the issues with regard to,
Turn shed to a garage type of thing. Is that what you're doing?
that's right.
well, that's
Turn
what,
the shed into a
that's what they,
workshop.
well, they, on Hoyt, they wanted to take the doors off, the double doors.
And make it an open
And
area.
leave it an open area. What I'm suggesting though, if
Like
you
a
have
pool
a
house.
woodworking shop, and you want to take the overhead door and put it in because it makes it far easier to move your equipment around and probably to get your truck up to it. I've seen these around, so.
you mean overhead doors?
Having the door open up
As
this way,
opposed to
as opposed
swing
to,
out.
yeah,
Right. I think-
the barn doors.
I think that would fall under the small-scale alteration that the Borland case is talking about.
So where is that? That's this right here? The board does not,
Yeah.
so it's down here.
This
Concerns.
Yeah. Now, the interesting thing is,
So this is in reference to something previously, what's the reference?
You gotta read the end of it.
well, it had to do with the house, and then they talked about the garage. But the interesting thing is, the court says as a matter of law, people can do this without a special permit. But the building commissioner says no, and that's how they come to us. And none of the lawyers have yet said, hey, Borland, we don't need to get a special permit, we can do this, my client can do this as a matter of right. Go talk to the building commissioner.
But at that point, when they come in front of us, it's easier for us to give them a special permit and call it a day than,
Right, I think it's so unclear, the lawyers want to be safe, and they want a special permit from us.
Absolutely.
Paying it. That's how confusing this is.
Yes. So, under the Borland case, note number 12. By bylaw, it's entitled to change, extension, alteration, and reads, as provided by yada, yada, yada. Dwelling may be altered and extended, providing it does not increase the non-conforming nature of said structure.
Where are you reading from?
The
Al?
note under Borland,
The second last page.
One of the footnotes?
yeah, number 12.
Oh, well, that's under the Norwell bylaw. The Comstock case
Yep.
points out that the town, in its ordinance, if it wants to, can elect to treat accessory structures the same as houses. But Harwich has not done that.
That's where Attorney Crowell was trying to go the other day, right? That's where Attorney Crowell was trying to go.
Yeah, but the town has not elected to do that. It would be much simpler for us
what, all right, so-
if they simply said, you know, accessory structures will be under the same test as single-family or two-family residential dwellings, in which case we'd only talk about special permits.
Now, what I don't understand regarding that is, on these accessory structures that were at one point on a non-conforming lot, at one point, the town approved them to have this house here and that garage or accessory structure there. And now they want to either replace it on the same footprint or make, you know, some adjustments. The town originally said, you can go ahead and put that building there, and to me, it's somewhat straightforward that you should be able to, you know, not just repair it, but when it becomes in disrepair, totally replace the structure either on the same footprint or within, you know, reasonable dimensions that won't damage the neighborhood.
Well, Well, the original building either went in before zoning
Well, I realize that.
or under a prior version with different setbacks.
That I understand, but the town, at some point, a building inspector said, go ahead, you can build it.
Understood. But
All right, and
today, today the requirements have to be met for an alteration or extension.
Well, I realize that, but I look at the whole house, between the house and the accessory building, the town at one point approved the site to have built. At that point going forward, I don't have any, it's clear to me that they should be allowed to do it. That's,
Well, then you'd have no zoning.
well, no, but but with still going through the requiring zoning thing to get it approved, and I realize we can say no to it, but I don't, well, actually, in any non-conforming situation, any alterations to the main building or to a garage has to come in front of us in the first place, because it's a non-conforming lot. But the fact that it was an accessory building that was approved at some point, to me, I think that accessory building gets wrapped up with the main house as well. It's all under, one umbrella. That's what I'm saying. That I don't look at it as under two different umbrellas. I look at it under one, because it all started out as one, and that's how it was approved back in 1925 or whatever it might be. And the people ought to be able to at least demolish it and replace this structure that's fallen apart without any real question about it.
Right.
But still come in front of us because it's a non-conforming
Well,
lot.
that's not what the code says. The bylaw says, if it's a structure other than a single family or two family, they need a variance if it's non-conforming for any alteration or,
Is that of the main house as well as the accessory building?
we have always taken the position that if the garage is attached to the house, it's part of the house. It's the freestanding garages that the board has always said fall under this requirement of another structure. So, for example, our garage
That's
is
not what this says.
part of our house.
That's not what Borkman says.
No, I'm looking back at the bylaw.
I understand, Borkman overrides this.
And how, no, I didn't say that. I said
I did.
Gale.
I know.
Borland, I'm not gonna say it overrides it. It takes out certain, what they consider small-scale additions
So correct, what they're saying is,
that can be done.
so concerns of the making of small-scale alterations, and they describe those as a proportional storage structure, such as a shed.
Right.
You can, by right, add a little shed into a non-conforming situation,
Yes.
which is exactly what we said with that, over in Hoyt. It's basically, they're storing grilling equipment.
Yeah, but this is small-scale or.
It was tiny, it was,
Right.
they were gonna take half the building down.
Well, it wasn't gonna be a shed, though, it was gonna be cabana.
Yeah, but that's an example, for example, right?
Okay, but that's why we disagree.
You also, there was also a neighbor there who was advocating.
Examples of such improvement, doesn't say the only examples, it
No,
says
I-
examples.
I understand that.
They
Where are
can't
you
put
reading from?
1,000 examples out there, they put illustrative type things, right?
My view was what they wanted to do wasn't a shed.
No,
So
but,
they needed a variance.
but it's a addition of a small-scale proportional storage structure.
But what could one argue that based on the neighborhood, putting cabana, a party zone, is not what all the houses have there? Like that is it's not height, it's not length, but it's different than the neighborhood.
Yeah, but I
I'll
mean,
question
what
the
they're
party aspect, because all they had was a grill there.
Yeah, I mean,
The neighbor
They were
maybe
building it.
tainted our head on
I
that. but-
loved what they were, I loved the design, I mean, if I could put that, but that is somewhere where I would entertain. That's
Yeah, absolutely,
party.
like everybody else does and has a summer
yeah,
grill,
it's a
right?
cookout. It's like, I mean, what's gonna stop them from still with this, what they're doing now, of putting their grill in the shed, and then when they need it, they wheel it out, like I did when I lived in Dennis.
Well,
Like, I had
yeah.
nowhere else to store it, so I wheeled it out, and I grilled right there, and I wheeled it back in. It's
Yeah,
the
but-
same
yeah,
concept
but-
of opening the garage door, wheeling it out, it's just
But it
open
is
already,
it is a variation to the neighborhood perspective.
to that
So-
one neighbor.
But according to this, according to Portland, if that structure never existed, I would be allowed to put a garage there. Because it says here, right here.
No, you wouldn't, because it would be in the setback.
That property.
That did have a right on the edge.
Where does it say that?
The bylaw says that.
But this is Portland we're talking about, which overrides.
If they're talking alterations, extensions, or changes, not putting something that doesn't exist there.
That garage was not
The
within the
conversion
setback.
of a one-story garage, or the addition
Right
of
here.
a small-scale proportional storage structure. The addition.
Oh, a gray area right there.
Well, okay.
There are a lot of gray areas.
Well, that's the law, right? It's not logic, it's the law.
Yeah.
But the
It's written
appeals
so that
court
it can be
leaves, the
interpreted.
appeals court leaves these decisions,
What's that?
the appeal court, they leave the decisions rather vague, primarily because they allow the local zoning boards to make decisions without any real strict decisions coming down from the court. It makes it very difficult.
Yeah.
But it protects them, so.
Right. So this is why I started out saying, I think we all might have different views of any situation, and that's okay. Because your view of that cabana as a shed is perfectly logical and fine, I just don't share it.
No, I didn't say it was a shed. I'm saying they give an example of structures, one of which is a shed, another one is something
Okay.
to house swimming pool heaters or equipment.
Okay.
This one here happened to house a grill.
Well, but they were gonna not just use it as a shed, storage shed, they were gonna change it, they were gonna open it up, they were gonna make it a.
Absolutely.
Make it-
Hang on,
What if the
Look,
second, what
nice.
if the
The
second
cabana
floor?
isn't in here. It isn't in the list. It's
What
Of
not
course
a-
not, it's an example, it's not a all-inclusive list,
It's not a shed anymore.
it's an example. It's
But what if the top part of this
A
shed was still
Proportional
used for storage?
storage structures, such as.
such as,
But
isn't it?
it wasn't gonna be a storage
Is
structure.
such as limiting or expansive?
Right, but it wasn't gonna be a storage structure, it was gonna be a party house.
But if the top part
A
of it
party
was-
house,
if the
you're being
top part
tainted
was
by
still-
the guy.
the
They've got
storage structure.
10-year-old
Wait a minute,
girls.
I can't hear Joe.
If the top part was still a storage structure, the bottom part, what does it matter about the bottom part of it?
Which are you referring to, the cabana case?
The grill, yeah, so what if they had a cabana for the bottom part, the top part was still used for storage? Where's the line drawn there?
There is no line.
Yeah.
There is no
Yeah.
line, okay?
It's a
I
circle.
think it's what each member looks at it and
Interprets
tries to
it,
sort
yeah.
through this based on the particular facts and makes its argument,
Yeah.
and then we ultimately vote on it.
But I think what I'm arguing is you're taking examples of such improvements. I mean, you can't put
That's
a
the
list,
literal
it'll
examples
be
that
a
are on
list
there.
15 pages long if you put every possible example, and you know you'd leave one out.
And to Al's point, that's what,
That's the reason we have
a-
our jobs,
That's right.
our highly paid positions
it's a
here.
question of judgment. And you've got your view, I've got mine, the other guys have their views, and then when it's all sorted out, we've heard each other,
And the
ultimately we decide, we take a vote.
And the neighbors have their views, which.
Right.
Which was presented.
Which, should that come into the argument?
No.
I would say yes.
I would say no.
No. We can
Just because
listen,
the
we
guy
certainly
didn't like
should.
it.
But isn't a lot of the parameters?
If they came in
saying-
and said, I think this is great, we like our neighbors, we're gonna go over and grill with them, would we have a different take on it?
No, I think the neighbors, we should listen to them in case they bring up any point
Silly,
that
that were
relates
valid,
to the
yeah.
bylaw
Yeah.
or the actual substance of the discussion. But for them to come in and say, it's like the 40Bs, yeah, we love it, but we don't want it here.
Here,
Uh,
yeah.
Okay, wait a minute, what kind of argument is that? We've got the 40B statute to live with, and, you know, if you have an ecological issue, show us some facts, well, hire a consultant.
You're in for a thrill when that starts.
And the, you know, the neighbors on the one that's down there in West Harwich now, across from Terry's Airport, I think it is.
Yeah.
It's really nice development. They kept arguing that was gonna increase pollution into, the Herring River. And we said, wait a minute, they meant Title V. You know,
They're clear.
if you wanna go out and spend the money and hire a consultant and they can prove through data that that's gonna happen, we'll listen to it. But the state of Massachusetts said, full standard of Title V, these people are meeting Title V. End of story on pollution.
Those 5 homes down there, right? Behind the Chase buildings.
Yeah,
On,
behind them,
28.
I forgot, they're 5 or 7, they look good, they did
Yeah,
a good
yeah,
job.
that's
as
the one with,
always.
that's where they just did the street over, even though it wasn't on the list at the time.
Anyway, I think we beat this one, let me go on to the next point to add to the confusion.
Is there any chance I was gonna change your mind on this argument?
No,
What if we put some
Why did we
brakes?
even bother to come here?
I don't know, you asked to come. You were the one that said, let's get
I
together.
wanted to
and
hear
talk
you,
about it.
what I wanted to hear was some examples, and I didn't get any from you.
I don't know what you mean by examples.
Well,
I don't think a cabana fits, my example is a cabana, in my opinion, does not fit.
A shed.
So you don't agree that
Saying
that
here.
was not, you think that was meant to be all-inclusive as a
No,
description?
not at all.
Then why couldn't a cabana fit into that case?
Because
So-
I don't think it's a
What if we put lawn
proportional
equipment in there too?
storage structure. It was gonna be for a different purpose, a different use.
But see, that's where the board, not necessarily, we don't necessarily agree with each other. And I have my opinion, Dave has his, you have yours, and we vote as to, because we've been relatively consistent with our votes.
Yes.
There have been times, prior to my ever coming on, I know Dave was one like here, where the board would have members that absolutely disagreed on the reading of it. And that's the nature of the beast.
Yeah. And it depends, part of it's the composition of the board. Okay, when I first went on the board, it was sort of like, now, and I was just an associate, so I didn't say much. But then we got a different chairman, and his view was, he didn't really care what the bylaw or the law said. We were there to grant relief. And unless it was outrageous, whether they met the requirement for a variance or not, they should get it. And I always thought that was bad, but again, I was still an associate. Well, eventually I became a full member, and then we had a different board, and there we held the line very similar to what this board is doing. That here's the law, and yeah, we can be flexible, but you know, come on, you gotta get close to it to let us get in there. And the example would be this Cross Street one. I could have taken the position that, no, that's storage, really, that's not what this case is talking about, they should get a variance. But I looked at it and I thought, it's still gonna be a garage, and yeah, it's storage space, and that's a lot closer to me to the things they're talking about in here in Borland, like proportional storage structure up above. And I decided, yeah, I would go with that as a special permit. The cabana case, it wasn't gonna be a garage anymore, it was gonna be a cabana, and they were gonna
What's a
completely
cabana? What's a cabana?
different.
What's a cabana?
What's a cabana?
Yeah.
What they originally proposed, it was gonna be open sides, and I don't know if they're gonna have screening, or I forget now the drawings. They had a whole
It was
design
similar
for
to
it.
what that, which mirror might have done with that, those pillars with the overhang.
Yeah,
that
I
type of
think so.
style.
That's a cabana.
It was a standalone, it was a standalone, yeah.
I mean, they called it a cabana.
That's fine.
Attorney Kroll described it originally as a cabana.
Yeah, he did.
That's fine, his words, doesn't
But
mean
it's,
that-
I
Well, that's
mean,
what he's asking for, a cabana.
they turned it into an open entertainment area, not a storage and shed area.
Right.
I mean, it was very, very clear.
Yeah.
So if he had said, they're gonna have a place where they're storing their grill and they can use it, and we're taking the front off, it would have been better?
Maybe I would have had a
Because
look
they
at the
used the word
drawings
cabana?
and see. No, it was a design structure, the whole thing. It was different.
Oh, they were taking the wall down on.
It became it became an extension of a patio.
Right.
For light. I mean, they're trying to illuminate the place.
I get it, they permanently opened the garage door.
Yeah, it was gonna be completely different than a garage, in my opinion. And I just, and maybe I'm too rigid, he's right, I'm a strict constructionist.
I feel like
And I'm,
we're,
no, I,
I feel like
Right.
we're trying to, help progress along, but also maintain a community, neighborhood kind of feeling. And what's
Exactly.
to stop me from, taking my shed down and putting some turntables in, and, if this is passed as
I'll
a
be there.
cabana, well, okay, so now I have precedent to take down my shed and turn it into a disco, and, you know what I'm saying? So I feel like that's why
Good luck.
there's
And-
not.
exactly, and part of my thinking is, I mean, it was, to me, that spelled lots of parties, lots of noise, and what's the biggest complaint in town the last umpteen years? Noise.
Wow, that's having, like,
Music.
that's having a band in Embers is a
Well-
little different than than a neighborhood barbecue.
Unless they were doing it full-time, they were setting up, to me, to be real party people, and given how close that neighbor was,
First of all, that neighbor's quite a distance away.
Right.
So
Hey,
you'll know. Go look at the property. He's not-
I did, but you know how
He's
sound
not-
travels.
The town does
I
not,
know how sound travels.
the town has no ordinance really with regard to noise. They've been trying for a number of years now. And the whole thing is, they have a decibel meter. They send some poor policeman down there who has to stand 100, I forget what the distance is, 100 feet away, whatever the place is, and read the decibel meter. And if it's in violation of, I forget what the decimal has to be above. They did this down at the one on corner of Bank Street, and they lost it. Because that had to do with the bar. Burke's, they've opened bars in Burke's, and it is a business location. And unfortunately, we live near the ocean. Now, I live less than a mile away. And you can sit at my house and hear from Howard Center when the bandstand's open. You can hear it from downtown when the music is playing. And it's much, because we live so close to an ocean, the sound travels much easier, And
Right next to exit 10, I know when somebody scores a touchdown at the high school.
yeah,
You know,
Yeah.
yeah. Baseball games, you can hear them as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I forget it was Dave or Brian, they said, we do need to be aware of the community and the neighbors and that type of thing. Because who else is there? And that's also colors my decision on whether.
You're saying that
it's-
as if I don't agree with that.
I don't know if you do, I'm just
I
stating
do
my
agree with that, I
position.
totally agree with that. It's just, saying
No.
she's putting a potty shack in for 10-year-old daughters is,
I don't know, I just look at it and there's
I have
no
a,
magic.
I have
to
a
it.
grill in my backyard, I got a shower, and I put a bunch of patio chairs out. To me,
Same
that's what
concept.
that
No.
what she had designed.
But you don't have, big gatherings probably, right?
Oh, yes, you
But
do.
occasionally
I
maybe.
do.
Oh, but
I don't know.
Sometimes I get,
I know what Dave's,
Don't
sometimes
come
I
over
get,
for a permit,
sometimes I get
that's all I
10
gotta
wild
say.
people there.
no, I know where Dave's coming from, and I know you want to move on, but they're taking a garage or a storage shed, and now they're becoming in a living unit with, from the, incorporating the deck into that building and putting in not only the grill, but probably a little bar set up, whatever. So now it becomes a whole different use. It's totally, and I know exactly where you're coming from. Totally different use than what is
So
existing.
if she put a patio in with everything the same, it would have been okay.
We can't.
Well, she did do a patio out there.
Yeah, what she's probably
putting
what she
patio
should
in.
do.
We can't beat this to death
Okay.
because
But-
we can make our decisions as they come
Yeah.
up.
But before we leave Borland, I just want to
We're
question.
gonna see more of these
Yep.
moving forward.
Constantly.
I
And
just-
I get
It's on a different subject on Borland. In that case, it said that the only discussion was, part of it was, that there was a new height situation, correct?
I don't remember.
All right?
I
And,
think, yes, there was.
right,
But
and it said
Which case is
Cross
this?
Street.
on Borland.
Oh, okay, sorry.
All right, but the original, what I don't get, when I read through it, it said that all the dimensional side setbacks were all met, and the town was 50 feet and 20 feet, and the house was set back only 35 feet 9 inches. So I don't understand why the case indicates that all the setbacks were met, that's all.
I don't know, I didn't look at it for that reason.
Okay, all right, when I read it through,
But the other thing in Borland, interestingly, they do give examples of the kinds of things that would be detrimental, more detrimental to the neighborhood. And they talk about the length of the house,
Yep,
the height would be increasing the impact, and some other things. So they do give some examples of things that the board could say, you know, they're doing this, that, or whatever, and it is gonna have a more detrimental impact on the neighborhood.
sure. All right. Well, we can move
I don't
on.
know Norwell, so what impacts them might not impact us here on the Cape. I don't know, or in
Okay.
Harwich, given how everything has been redeveloped already significantly, almost every street in town. Anyway, let me move on. Here's another interesting thing, and it hasn't come up lately, but every once in a while. If you look at 32514Q there,
325.
14Q,
Okay.
it says a residential accessory building that contains bedrooms is subject to special permit review. And that in itself is confusing, because when you go back to 325-51, it appears that only the planning board would have jurisdiction on those, but they come to us regularly, and we decide them. But then it goes on to say residential accessory buildings without bedrooms are not subject to special permit review. So, what does that mean? Does that mean they always have to get a variance? I don't know. That's just another point of confusion. And again, you probably have to look back at the Borland case.
That almost sounds contradictory, doesn't it?
But yeah, that's very confusing, isn't it? Yeah,
Mm.
and that has come up a lot of times, but not
I
recently.
would think if they couldn't get a permit, they would say you're not allowed to have special permit.
Well, no, what I'm saying is they can't, it's not subject to special permit review, but they have to have some measure of getting relief. So does that mean they have to get a variance? I don't know.
Well, wait a minute. So are they saying here that only if it's in violation of the setbacks, right?
Say that.
It doesn't say that.
Residential.
The whole thing is confusing. I just
It is.
pointed out, I don't have an answer. I just pointed out that that's another thing that's, hasn't come up in a while, but in days going by, and it will come up again. And along the same line, if you just slide down there to T, it talks about accessory building, single-family dwellings with accessory apartments. And we have always taken the position that if the accessory building has bedroom, kitchen, and bathroom, they have to meet accessory apartment requirements.
So they're saying that a residential accessory building should be allowed a special permit, but a residential accessory building the one with the bedroom can use a special permit. Without a bedroom, it needs to be even more complex approval.
It's not clear.
It's illogical.
Does it? Yeah, well, I know. I didn't write it.
No, I'm saying, so my interpretation would be to make it as logical as I possibly could.
Is-
To me, it says it's a simpler process than a special, it doesn't need a review, you just do it.
I think most of the time, we'd fall back on these examples in Borland and deal with it as a special permit.
No, just,
I just pointed out that it's confusing as all get out.
Right, and what I was saying was just, and sometimes in these things, you gotta pull back and say, what makes
Right.
sense here?
And I think,
And going to Borland, to go into Comstock or whatever, is the way, correct way to do it.
in my view always is we wanna, if we can do it as a special permit, we ought to do a special permit. The reason why is 99% of the variances, if challenged, will not survive a court challenge. Variances, that test is really strict, and the courts really do adhere to it on variances. So I like to give the applicant, if we're gonna grant relief, every help we can, and give them the special permit, which is almost impossible to attack successfully, rather than a variance, which is much easier to overturn if you got a disgruntled neighbor. Remember, not all the neighbors that are disgruntled might be at the hearing. They might wait for the decision and then take court action.
okay.
But like I said, if there's an accessory building that has a bedroom, a kitchen, and a bathroom, I think we then need to make sure they meet single-family dwelling with accessory apartment. That's an accessory apartment, in my opinion. And it's very difficult to meet the accessory apartment requirement. It was put in to increase housing, but it's written so tightly, it doesn't accomplish the purpose. But again, the board was not asked for any input. Planning did this.
So planning did it with town council.
I don't think so.
So you say the lawyer didn't even get involved in writing this?
I don't know. I don't think they have town council when they do it, but I don't know that. I have no idea. We've never been.
That accessory apartment, like you were just describing, that becomes somewhat difficult to deal with, because for the reasons you said, is why the town, to increase housing. The town is why they have allowed this, and we got hammered with a bunch of these
Yeah.
for quite a period of time.
Mm-hmm.
But I can remember one we had in which it was a boathouse. I don't know if you remember it. It's over, again, it's in the campground district. They have a beautiful boathouse on one street, and they wanted to convert the boathouse, first and the ground floor and the top floor, into an in-law apartment. And what it essentially came down to was the septic system. And I think you were the one that said they gotta reduce the number of rooms, bedrooms in the main house. That was not part of the original request. But they had a full kitchen, because I can remember a couple of where you couldn't have the kitchen. You could have everything other than the kitchen, but you could have a hot plate, which everybody kind of giggled. But that was the nature of the beast at that time.
Right, we took the position if there was no kitchen, it was not an accessory
Right.
apartment.
Right.
Because under the
That's right,
definition.
it's an accessory building at that point.
Where's accessory apartment? I think it requires you to have a kitchen. Dwelling, single family with accessory apartment. The apartment shall contain a kitchen and bathroom which are separate from and not used in common with the principal dwelling unit. So there has to be a kitchen and bathroom for an accessory apartment.
That was a big change, was
So,
that
yeah.
kitchen.
It hasn't come up, but I'm sure it will again. And it doesn't come up if they got a lawyer, because most lawyers look at it and they can't meet the requirements that are fairly stringent. Because one of the problems is, there's a square foot requirement, which varies by district. The accessory apartment cannot have more than one half of the net floor area of the principal dwelling, and not more than 900 square feet. What else? Those are two
That
of the
square
biggies.
footage, like you just read, that has caused a problem for some of our people who've come in looking, was because of the size of the property.
Do you
Yeah.
think once we all hook up to the town septic, that this will become more prevalent? Because there's a bathroom, there's a bathroom issue with it, right? The number of bathrooms you're allowed to have on, but once the septic gets all hooked up, doesn't that?
Well, that's
gonna
a
change.
separate issue, Board
Gotta
of Health,
change
number of
everything.
bathrooms.
So do
yeah.
we even have any say at all on the septic system issue? Like,
Well,
if they
actually,
wanna put something in and they can't fit a septic system, that's not our problem, right?
well,
It's someone
no.
else's.
No, within 10 feet, we
If
can-
you look at,
I didn't think we did.
okay, 32551, special permits. Under A, no, I'm sorry, under B, it says in approving a special permit, except for a site plan, it doesn't, that's a planning thing. And in approving a special permit, the board may attach such conditions and safeguards as are deemed necessary to protect the public and the neighborhood, such as but not limited to the following. Number 5 is limitation of the total projected volume of sewage or nitrate discharge. Now, we don't get involved with
What was
that,
No.
What was that?
but we can do it. It's 32551B. And I think the last time when we were talking about the conditions, I referenced this, where we wanted a construction fence, the one down there on Cross Street, in the working hours, not before 7 and not after 5. We can basically put any conditions on that we think are reasonably designed to safeguard the neighborhood.
Yeah, Brian brought a good point on that one there with regard to Saturday.
Yeah,
That was
because,
a good point.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was an excellent point. So I'm not sure we'd ever want to get into that,
How would, excuse me, Dave,
but we can certainly.
how would we get into it?
I think what we'd have to do is probably
We know nothing about
continue the
septics.
case and talk to the town engineer and the,
but
Health.
before getting to us, the Board of Health has already given
they've
an,
already done it,
Yeah,
so.
I would hope so.
I mean, at that point, we've already got some words from the Board of Health.
Right, exactly. So Chris just asked, could we do it? I'm not sure we'd ever want to,
No,
but I
I can,
think what
I
we
can
have to
see us
do
do a
is do a
nitrate loading
continuance to get
calculations.
input from the Board of Health and from the town engineer.
I mean,
And I think we did that on the 40B down there. like,
Yes.
We went back to
Yeah,
them and asked
yeah.
them in regard to certain of the specific claims that the neighbors had raised to give us some input. Okay, the only other thing I just want to call out is, the good news is, I don't think this is controversial or we need to discuss it, but on 32518, 32518, C and D, if it's a corner lot or a through lot, the setback has to equal the front yard depth. So that's something I forget that frequently to look at that. We have a lot of corner lots and a lot of through lot. Through lot, you know, the house is on 2 different streets. And under F, it talks about the projections that are allowed, which is the terraces and the shed issue. And that comes up all the time. That one I really look at, depending on what the plans say, especially for decks.
could you explain through lot again? I'm
They can
sorry.
go, let's see. Yeah, it stoops, if it's under 4 feet of height, they get relief. They can go, I think, within 2 feet of the sideline. I'm sorry, Brian.
Would you explain again through lot?
Through lot, it's just a lot that's on 2 streets. It's got a street in front and street on the back.
Oh, I'm sorry, okay, all right. Not that the residence is split between those street, okay.
Yeah, and then, let me see, do we have a definition?
So at
there?
that point, they've got frontage on both sides.
Yes.
Yeah, you find that all again in the
Or it-
campgrounds.
But down the campgrounds, that's all over
Yeah,
the
we
place.
had one down there, actually.
Yeah,
Could be on the, well, it's not, I don't see the definition quickly. I think it's usually the front and the back, but it could be on the side too, perhaps.
that'd be a corner, but that'd be a corner
But
lot.
that would be a corner, I guess, yeah. That would be a corner lot. Although we've had them where they're on 3 sides too.
Oh, sure, I can see that.
Where there's a curve coming around.
So now, if on frontage and setbacks, that really minimizes the lot on standard, you know, it really cuts them back quite a bit.
So I don't know, I think this has been helpful, I don't know, Chris, but not that I think it was good to kick it around and discuss it and look at we'll look at each case as we've done and kind of decide how we view it and then talk about it. And ultimately, we convince each other and everybody votes the same or not. I think that's the only thing that makes sense when there's so much here that's subject to interpretation and unclear and conflicting. But as Chris said, that's why we get the big bucks. If it was easy, anybody could do it, right? Anything further on this?
I mean, as I went through things, issues I'm still confused about sometimes a little bit. All right. In going back and rereading about everything that required for a variance, and I know we're doing mostly special permit tonight. On the variance, a hardship cannot be created by the applicant.
Yes.
Right.
All right. So, and I could have the facts wrong in this case. I'm just gonna go back to it real quick. And that happened to have been sand and gravel place that was turned into a solar farm. Now, his application, that was on the property that borders Chatham as well. And
The Nickersons.
Nickersons.
Yeah.
And so they want to put a solar farm in, and they had, of course, had dug down the land as far as they could to above the water table. But now in order to put it in a residential community, they'd have to fill it all back up again. Now, in that case, I think they're applying for a variance. I mean, I looked at it as being, it was a no-brainer as a special permit based upon the solar regulations. But they dug the hole that created the hardship that they're going for the variance. And, I mean, I approved it, I voted yes for it because I looked at it anyways because of they went for the special permit. I mean, there was just a no-brainer under that for solar. I didn't think I was surprised they asked for a variance. But we approved that based upon a variance. And, at least I thought we did.
I'm not sure it was the same owner that did the excavating.
Okay, so, all right, so I'm the owner, I dug a big friggin' hole, it now is I would have a financial problem that I created, trying to now create it for housing. So I sell it to my wife, or I sell it to myself in another corporation, and then I can apply for a variance?
You can apply.
Well, I realize that, but, no, but would that be deemed, or I sell the property to the next guy, now the next guy now owns it, and he bought it the way it was, can he apply for the variance?
Yes.
Okay,
Now, we could take the position, though, it was self-created in the sense that the prior guy in title created the problem, and this guy knew it when he bought it. But I guess that would be a fact discussion we'd have. If he wasn't planning when he bought it necessarily for this use, solar,
right,
are we gonna stick him with the, fact that somebody in the chain of title excavated it, and now he's not gonna get a variance?
well, again, you buy what could be considered, except for solar, a useless piece of property. All right?
And that's another factor. I mean, are we gonna just let the thing sit fallow, or in this case, it was a good beneficial
Oh, wait a minute,
use?
I was behind it 100%, there's no question about it, because the guy's putting a solar
Was that the
farm.
reason that they got approved, because they had a hardship, you couldn't use it for anything else?
Yeah,
Yeah.
That was the rationale.
right, and that just says, all right, well, it's a
It would've been-
no-brainer under a special permit, so,
Yeah.
and I was in favor of the project, it was a major benefit to the community, was not gonna be an eyesore, even the solar farm was behind, God knows how many hundred yards of trees before it hit the highway. I mean, it was a perfect location for the sucker, all right? But I just wanna kinda say, all right, it just came back up looking at things, and that just kinda wanna just throw that out there. But it might have been under a different ownership at that particular point, though still involved with the same straw ownership.
Right.
Okay.
Technically, we probably could have denied the variance. But again, I mean, it's subject to
I mean, the present,
reasonableness, I
right.
guess.
Well, that one there was obviously reasonable because.
Well, yeah, no, I'm not even questioning it, I voted for it.
Damaged property because
Right.
of the
Right.
decades of work that had gone on there.
Well, yeah.
Is there a timeline where they were doing that for so many decades, so many years they were doing that work, that was the storage area, therefore the hardship was caused by a legitimate business as opposed to the person just didn't do that hardship just so they get approval on a variance.
Right,
They didn't self-create for the variance. It was
exactly.
part of a legitimate business for decades, and now that business ended, now this property remains. They didn't create the hardship intending to get a variance.
Well, maybe no, of course, but
Now, when I
he would
first,
have known what he could
Yeah.
do with it.
when I first joined the board, we had a case that came, and they wanted a variance. Let me see if I can remember it. They had 3 what were legal lots at that time. And for whatever reason, the owner joined the lots together to make one lot. And then when property values went up, he decides, no, I want a variance to have 3 what would no longer be legal lots. And we turned them down. We
Oh,
said,
sure, I would-
Self-created, come on. No, you gave up, you had them, you gave them up. We're not giving you the variance. And you know who voted against it? Me and Dean. It was a 3-2 decision, yeah.
Dean voted against it.
Dean, yeah. Yep. And I remember the chairman said, you just cost that guy probably between $1 million and $1.25 million on those, turning down those lots. I said, well,
So we had 3 combine them?
he had combined them into one, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Now he
One
wants to
separated
make
back
3
out.
again.
Do you remember why he combined them and how long have they been combined?
He had a big family, he wanted more room, and I don't know, maybe he put in a cabana, I don't know.
That's.
Well, that right there would have been denied.
I can't wait for this
When
cabana.
you combine 3 lots, you can have huge parties.
I can't wait for this cabana case.
When did they just try and separate them? Or was this when you first joined the board?
No, he had separated them a number of years prior, maybe
But then he combined it and then one separated again.
Yeah.
I'm just saying, because the hours are doing that.
8 or 10 years had passed, yeah.
The hours are doing that right now. They had a big plot, they separated up for his kids to build on those properties.
Well, you can separate it up, but each one's gotta be a
But he
legal lot.
didn't, he didn't
Yeah.
have to combine them, right? I guess he did to build a house in the middle?
He might have been
No,
one,
he
yeah.
didn't really need to combine them. I don't remember exactly, it didn't make a whole lot of sense to me why he did it, but he did it. And then he wanted to undo it, 6 or 10 years later, because now the lots are really increased. But, they weren't gonna be big enough, they weren't gonna be 40,000 square feet, and they might not have had the 150 road frontage. That's a big deal to get the 150 on some lots. So Dean and I voted against it, and it failed 3-2. So that's a real example where we did turn one down, self-created.
All right, and just going back over it and just second guessing myself a little bit. So you got a non-conforming lot, and the guy's got a structure that's obviously too close on one side. But on one of the sides, it's at or better than 20 feet away. So it's within the setback. So a guy's getting a renovation on a non-conforming lot where one side is the existing house is on the 20-foot line. So he meets a setback requirement on a non-conforming house, but now he wants to, remodel it and make it 18 feet. Can he do that?
We have always taken the position that's a new nonconformity, and you gotta get a variance.
Okay, all right, that's what I thought, I just wanted to,
Attorney Crowell likes to point out that some boards would say, no, there's already a setback nonconformity, and it's an intensification, not a new nonconformity. A new nonconformity might be a height violation,
right.
because you already had a setback. And we said, no, come on, wait a minute. He meets it on this side at 20, and he doesn't meet it on this side, and you're gonna say, this nonconformity over here justifies making a nonconformity here without a variance? No, that's not correct.
Okay, so now he wants, and this part would be a variance, he wants to demolish the house and recenter it, so now instead of being 3 feet from the lot line, he can make it all the sides at least 15 feet to make it better for the neighborhood. But it takes away the 20-foot line and makes it now to 15. That would require a variance?
Yes, because it's a new nonconformity.
Okay.
It didn't exist previously.
All right, so, and more than likely, we might consider that variance, because now it's just making because of the shape,
It's
whatever,
getting better.
it's making everything better. Okay.
Well,
But
it's not really making it better. If it's a new nonconformity, it's making it worse.
well, no, but it's taking a house that all of a sudden is like right on top of the next door neighbor or too close to the street or whatever it might be, and now it's centering the lot, so it's, and I realize the other side neighbor, now it's closer to his house, so I suppose that's an argument. So recentering the lot would be a new nonconformity that have to go for a variance, it would not be under special permit.
Yeah, we've always taken that position.
Okay.
Yeah, once
And I
you
think it
create
makes
a
sense,
new
really.
nonconformance,
I think it is a new
Right.
nonconformity. I mean, just, what else would you call it?
wasn't a similar thing that happened with that guy, he had the old, on Old Queen Anne Road? He had that
Yes.
like ancient, this like one of the original Howard properties,
Yeah.
and he wanted to redivide his lots.
Yeah, it had the garage up and back.
The
and,
garage was, it was one big lot, and
Yes.
and there were two homes on it, he wanted to cut it and do like a funny shape.
Yeah.
And he would have gone from one being conforming, one non-conforming, to two non-conforming when he did this.
It was the driveway, he was gonna do something with the driveway in order to get the extra,
Yeah,
yeah.
Did we give him a variance? I
We
don't
did.
remember.
Yeah, we did.
yeah, we
Okay.
did. Because in the,
big
at least
lot.
the logic I remember was it made sense. You were taking a tiny little lot and a big lot, making two moderate-sized lots. It's just, nothing's changed outside the perimeter of those two lots. He just did a little changing inside to make it more sensible for the two property owners.
And I guess my view on the variance is, if there's nobody there objecting and it's reasonable and makes sense, I'm okay. Whether
Yeah,
it's
no,
a strict meeting of it or not, again, we've got a little leeway here. And the courts have said dimensional variances are much easier to grant, minimal hardship required for dimensional variances.
What define a dimensional, what do you mean? Just to
Um,
make sure I understand.
Going into the setback, extending into the setback.
As opposed to what variance would be more difficult?
Increasing site coverage, maybe? That's not a dimensional variance. Well, I suppose it could be, but height might be a dimensional. I would say height's a dimensional.
Height's a dimensional.
Yeah. But increasing, building coverage or site coverage, I don't know.
Use?
I'd have to look. Usually they're talking about increasing the setback infringement slightly, by, umpteen feet. But there's not a lot of cases on it, and it's kind of like these cases, they throw it out, leave it up for interpretation. And what's, a small dimensional variance, what's small? I don't know. Going to Bryantport, 6 inches, 60 feet. I don't think 60 feet's small, but between, 6 inches and 60 feet, there's a lot of room for discussion by the board and consideration. If it's a couple of feet, yeah, but if it's 15 or 20 feet, I don't think so.
Well, at that
My
point,
opinion.
look around the neighborhood and what else is going on here and
Right.
make a decision partly on that,
Right, and I will say, even though I strongly feel each case is unique and there's no precedent, we should be fairly consistent.
Well, yeah.
Because otherwise, Attorney Kroll or some other applicant will bring it up constantly, which they do, where we did it this way in that case, and what about his? Now, the good news is, I always say, I don't remember the details, and until you look at all the details, you can't really say it's the same or substantially the same case. So, anything else?
And not to rehash this, but regarding
Go
creating,
ahead.
a new nonconformity. All right, obviously, use, as you pointed out, making it into a cabana could, in your opinion, in that situation was in a way, a new nonconformity, correct? That
Well, it was a
particular-
different
He's going for-
structure. I
He's
mean,
going for a different use.
Yeah, I don't,
But you thought it also just became a different structure altogether, okay?
yeah, I thought it needed
But
a variance,
is,
yeah.
so putting habitable space in a garage or a shed is never a new nonconformity, is that correct, on an accessory building?
No, I wouldn't say that.
Okay,
Because that was the Cross Street case, they wanted to put what might be habitable space up above the garage. And I objected to that under a special permit.
okay.
So, since you brought us back to that one.
That's what I'm saying. That's why I get confused. I'm very
Well,
confused.
no, it is very confusing.
I'm very confused in that point, that's all.
Because in the case of Quasin Lane,
Of course.
Oh.
I'm gonna get a plaque.
no.
Remember Quasin Lane?
I think that's inconsistent with our ruling, what we did on Cross Street, because in both cases, that was the Borkland case, you can put a garage by right, and I'm assuming they're talking about a non-conforming location for that garage. So in both cases, they would be placing a shed or a garage with the garage with an accessory building. And it's, in the Borkland case, they say that's okay.
No, I don't think they said that. That was my point.
Can you just, what line on the Borkland thing are you referring to?
When they talked about garages, they said the addition of a one-story garage,
Must be in here.
and not more than 2 motor vehicles, or converting a one-story garage from 1 motor vehicle to a one-story garage for 2 motor vehicles. So basically, they're talking about garage to garage. In both cases, they're talking about one-story garage. The Cross case and the other one, Quasin, they were going 2 stories for one thing.
Okay, that's
And-
correct.
I admit that I would change my vote today and vote differently on Quasin. That was not a good
Why do you
decision I
remember
made.
why we made that decision? What was the logic? Because sometimes it's how the logic flows and how the discussion flows.
It was in character of the rest of the
I
neighborhood.
would tend to agree with you right now,
I,
right?
I think because I thought it was an improvement to the
Right,
property.
that's exactly
and
the reason I
voted
did it.
for it. And nobody had, in the neighborhood had a issue. Well, actually, that's
It
not
was.
true.
No, one guy
There
did,
was one guy, and
family
I
on the
figured,
other
you know
across the
what?
street.
If he feels that strongly, he can challenge it, take it to court. If he really is that upset. So he's got a remedy. But I wish I had voted against it now, in
I
retrospect.
think in that property though, the back street that you're talking about, that shed was within the property line,
No, it was 8 feet. It was like 8 feet from,
feet from the-
it was like, it was short. It was
no?
like,
Okay,
because there was that whatever path or road that was,
yeah,
then there was a fence.
right.
And this
right.
sucker was like 2 feet from the fence.
But he could have put a garage in. He could have replaced that tiny little shed with the garage, based on the Borkland case.
As long as there's 1 story.
As long as his, it could have been 2-story like the one across. But he could not put an accessory apartment or a bedroom or anything like that above it.
I guess so, I'd have to look back, I don't remember exactly what he wanted to
But
do.
just based on Borkland, they let you put a garage in, one and two car garage, but it doesn't say anything about being able to put
All right, now,
a bedroom above it like they did in
all right,
Quasin.
so on Quasin, he was replacing a shed. If it hadn't been a shed there, would we have allowed a garage with accessory, based on accessory building to be built that
Not
close?
no.
No, we would
It
have
had
had
to be
a
20
It was
feet.
clearly because
Yeah.
of the pre-existing.
Okay, I just want to double check that. All right,
Yeah,
all
yeah.
right.
You sure there wasn't a bedroom or something in that shed?
No, it was.
No, it was 104 square feet.
Okay, I'm getting a.
I paced it off, it was on.
I can go back to my- I got
it was
notes
on,
here.
Okay.
It was on concrete blocks, it wasn't,
It
or
was-
did it actually have actual foundation? You remembered it, because you gave me crap about it.
I don't remember.
I paced it
Oh, it was-
off.
no.
We had another
Yeah,
case that
yeah.
came where it was falling down, but they had bedrooms or something, and we did let them revamp
It was like
that.
7 feet over what would be, a minimum, a shed, that didn't require, a setback permit, okay? I mean, just, yeah. It wouldn't have taken much, that sucker to have been a normal size, a small shed.
Thank you, Dave, this has been a great idea. Seriously, it's been nice to,
I don't know
you know,
about
kick it
that.
around.
I'm exhausted.
All right, wait a minute.
I usually get paid good money for doing
I
that.
just don't understand the cabana thing.
Seriously? All right, let's move on to the election of officers. We need a chairman and we need a clerk, and I will accept self-nominations. This really is gonna be my last year. I don't wanna, put pressure on anybody, but I've got one more year left. But I've been on since 2009, and I looked up in the minutes. Apparently June of 2016, I got elected chairman, so this is 6 years, and that's long enough. I'm getting tired. It's a fair amount of work.
Well, no, obviously it is, and the one key thing in your leaving that I think will be a loss, well, it's a loss, period, for the board, but particularly this 40B coming up, if this thing comes up in the fall, and also we find ourselves, we're gonna wrap things up next July as opposed to next June, would you be willing to stay on board, just and be reappointed, but then resign when the 40B got done?
I guess I would, yeah.
I mean, if it's gonna be,
What I'd have to do is...
I don't wanna see a marathon going on, but all of a sudden, we're almost at the end.
Yeah, I would get reappointed and then resign after it was wrapped up.
Right, I mean, if things were gonna be wrapping up within a couple of months, I would think you may wanna see it through. I mean, just possibly, but just throwing out there, would you consider seeing it through if it's gonna get wrapped up within a couple of months?
Yeah, I'd be willing to do that. And
Now, I'm gonna clarify that. Are you talking about resigning from the board at that point, or just strictly from the chair?
No, he's talking about the board.
From the board.
He's resigning from the chair, as of next
Come on,
month.
You're going into my 17th year. Give me a break.
Yeah, no, absolutely, we understand.
I also, if I'm not the chair and 40B comes up, I would recommend that whoever is chair use outside counsel a lot more than I would town council.
Oh, yeah,
I
okay.
really say, so you can have town council come to every meeting. She said that, remember, in our
Yeah.
discussion.
Oh, no, that's,
Some towns do that. And I would also, you have to fill out a form and go to the town manager, but if he's not acting quickly enough, personally, I just go directly to Amy and get her in here, and if he doesn't like it, then you go to the selectmen.
I mean, you're allowed to hire a outside consultant that might be at every meeting, correct?
Well, that's, consultants are different.
Right, but you'd have the consultant plus the attorney, have them both showing up.
Right.
So if you certainly get the consultant who would be very beneficial in making sure you hit all the timelines, which are very strict.
Right, but I think she would also help choose the right consultant.
Oh, no, wait, there's not any question, I think that's good advice.
No, the consultant, it's partly chosen by the board and partly by the town manager. They both have to sign off.
And the attorney, if I recall, didn't she say she had recommendations who she could make regarding the consultant?
Yes, that she's worked with, that she thought were better than others. Yeah. So, anybody want to be chairman? You guys can't because you're associates, so it's got to be.
One of the problems, Dave, we're gonna have when you leave, I don't know, actually, I don't know your background. Actually, I don't know everyone's background. I guess Al, I don't recall enough when we talked about. But your legal background is, for me, critical. Jamie, he to me was the obvious person to replace you because he had the building experience. He worked in the
I think it
building
was
department.
fire chief, wasn't he?
I thought he was he? I thought he was
fire chief, but.
I thought he worked in the
maybe, I
building
don't remember
department.
where.
But he did something along the lines of the zoning and all that, I thought. So to me, those are two valuable backgrounds that brings knowledge in. I mean, I've been on the board for, I think I'm coming up on my third year, maybe sometime.
Well, we both came on at the same time.
Yeah, pretty much same time. I think I started in August. So
Not-
3
Yeah,
years
no, I
August.
started in March or whatever.
Yeah, you just got reappointed, I got notified.
Okay.
But I mean, I don't have a background, I don't have enough experience to do this. I mean, I'm a freaking chemist, right? I did enough legal stuff during the course of my career doing that stuff, and I did building stuff back when I was in college and graduate school, but, I mean, the experience level I have, for instance, and I don't know how everyone else feels, but, for themselves, but there's no way I could be chairman. Absolutely no way.
Well,
I don't have a background for it at this point. Couple of more years of experience,
I think Chris, I think you and I both feel the same way. If it was, 2 years from now, I would have felt like I had, a lot more under, under
but we've
the,
gone through a lot more cases,
right.
and just and you start learning it by doing it.
You've been vetoed 5 more years, congrats.
No, wait.
Al,
I'm going to make a statement that I've made before. And I'm going to take it from Lyndon Baines Johnson.
Okay.
No, and
that
damn
bastard
no.
sent me to Vietnam, so.
No, and damn no. Huh?
Wait.
I'd like to see somebody younger.
I have the time.
I think Brian would make a fine source.
I know it's a daunting task that I don't think anybody in this board trying to follow in your
But
footsteps.
Brian, if I nominate you, are you saying no or yes?
No, no. If the board felt that I could do the job, or they could trust me enough, like saying, come on, Chris, we can't have that idiot be the chairman, okay?
No.
All right.
Trial by fire.
All right, I mean, it's Chris, either one of us is going to have,
We're gonna have to rely on.
a lot of work.
Either one of us have to rely on the rest of the board for.
So, yeah, so we all have, no, so, and I think particularly the rest of the board needs to, when you go into a situation, go back in and look at the code and get more, I think we've kind of sometimes walked in these cases, and I could be wrong here, but because of Dave's background, well, I'll get educated in the meeting when Dave speaks, and I'll try to make my opinion then. I just kind of like leaned on you an awful lot for interpretation. I think now with Dave gone, well, we have the next year to all of a sudden, feed down on him and try to shake out whatever we can on the table. Huh?
Pick his bones?
Whatever, But I think it now is more responsible for all of us, just not to go by the lots and saying, okay, nice, let's see what goes on at the meeting. I think we all have to actually roll up your sleeves a little bit and spend more time reading the code and getting to know that a lot better than we probably do right now walking into a meeting.
That's probably a fair statement, but having said that, that's the code, and it's like.
Well, I know, but
It's that paragraph,
but
not
it's-
that one,
but
is the
it's-
daunting part of this whole.
Right, but every case comes in, and first of all, it's responsibility of the attorney presenting it to point out the issues and point out like Attorney Kroll does a great job. And there's one other attorney that does a pretty good job as well, I can't think of his name. Huh?
Attorney Singer, too.
Singer. I mean,
Two
great,
best, yeah.
they come in. And particularly Attorney Kroll has been very patient when I've asked questions, because hey, if I don't know something, I'm gonna let you know I don't know it. I don't mind showing my ignorance. I don't want to just show my, but I try to hold back and show my stupidity. But I don't mind letting people know that I don't understand something. In particular in these cases, you know what? If I don't understand it, you better do a better job explaining it to me so I can make a decision. Because right now, if I'm confused, you know what? It's probably going to be no. All right? Unless you educate me during this meeting. But I think we all would have to buckle down and spend more time, on coming in and because right away, most meetings you start off with, well, in addition to this, have you, the attorney, have you considered this particular piece of the code? You know what? Each case you've spent time researching it in that code, even though you know an awful lot, know a ton, you still spend time researching it before we meet. And I think we all got to take responsibility on doing that.
Yeah, 'cause I don't remember. I have to go back and look.
Yeah,
You know,
and-
just refresh my mind. I do remember, but not the specifics. I have to go back
some-
and look at it.
Some of that's time, the amount to have the board,
It's
some
time,
of
and
that's
I-
your legal background.
And I
because
make
you
notes, you
pick
gotta,
things
you
up.
know, you can't go in there and try to do it ad hoc. You need to, on each case, make some notes, so you can
Your
ask
legal
good questions.
background is very, very valuable.
Well, of course.
And I agree, but we have had the last few chairmen that were not lawyers before me, but we had lawyers on the board that could assist.
Yeah, one time we had Jim
Jim
Hilliard.
Jim Hilliard, but before that, even better with John Burke, because John
Oh,
was a
yes.
practicing zoning lawyer. Jim didn't do zoning,
Yeah,
but he was a good lawyer. But John Burke knew zoning in and out. He was terrific. And
So-
a nice guy too. John was great.
What's your background?
I work in HR, so a lot of legal related things in that aspect,
Yeah.
but, I do a lot with talent management, so employee relations, interviewing, that type of stuff.
Wait, you work where?
Cape Cod 5.
Okay, that's what you said that, you used self in the case.
I know Chris too well. I knew it would get approved anyway, but else.
Yeah, a lot of those, it's best to walk away, so you don't get,
Yeah, I don't wanna be in
cause a
crosshairs.
problem.
Yeah.
HR, what's your background in school?
I got my undergrad in, human resource management, and then I got an MBA with a certificate of strategic HR.
Which had a lot of legal stuff in it.
Yeah, I mean, it's, you are the bylaw of the bank,
Right.
basically.
Yep.
But, definitely, you know, I'm still young, man, I'm 28, I'm still pretty young in my career, I have lots to learn, so.
What's your background?
So I was an investment advisor in Boston. I'm going back to that. I took a year of COVID.
Okay.
COVID to a different position, but I'm going back to that. But no law.
No,
No law.
I'm a chemist, but I did a lot of legal stuff in the course of that, IP and contract law. What's your?
I started off after college for a few years as an industrial real estate broker, and became a sales manager for a company as an industrial real estate broker. And then I was in computers for a while, as far as marketing manager for a software company. But then actually the last 25 or 30, was spent as a general manager of an RV dealership, and then running inventory management for a dealership network of about, at that point, had 20 dealerships. I ran their inventory, a number of groups across the country. So that's my background. I dealt with a lot of lawyers because, customer service, being sued and things like that, and, whatever. But that's my major background.
It's confusing and complicated, but I think we've spent a lot of time tonight, and you got a pretty good sense of the kinds of provisions you need to look at in most of the cases.
Most of the same case to case, looking at the same sections for almost all the cases.
The same sections come up repeatedly. And you usually need to start at the 325-54 because we're always, generally, not always, but most of the time dealing with non-conforming structures. So that's sort of the starting point, and we have these two cases to complicate things. And then we have the more specialized provisions, like on the accessory apartments and through lots and whatnot. And once in a while, we'll get an odd one where we've had line of sight issues. That's kind of something that doesn't come up very often, but occasionally. And you just have to dig in and read the code provisions, see what they say about it. And then we discuss it and hear what the presenter says. The problem is when the presenter is presenting without a lawyer, that's difficult because they don't give us any help whatsoever. As Brian said, when the lawyers come in, especially the good ones like Attorney Singer or Attorney Crowe, they lay it all out, so you've got a pretty good idea of, what they're looking at in the code and what their position is. But the applicants sometimes they come in with a builder that's pretty knowledgeable. Most of the time, not so much. They say, we want to do a shed because we need a shed or whatever it is. Okay.
Yeah,
So now we gotta do all the work.
I don't think a singer or crow's gonna walk in here and when they present their argument, gonna make an argument that doesn't have a reasonable, line to the code and facts. So, so we're on good footing if we go along with the applicant then, because they generally laid out the case fairly well. So it was a reasonable decision because he's shown you why it meets, and there's interpretation of the code can be reasonably done for their clients, but,
Right, but he sets out the little paragraph of his argument so you can look up in the bylaw ahead of time, the weak points, so you know
Sure.
whether it's good or not. And the same with Attorney Singer really gives you a whole outline.
Yeah, I always wonder why sometimes they do in the alternative of variance, because in most of these cases, I look when they look at us and, if you don't give a special permit, give me a variance. And I say, wait, there's just no logic as to why this would qualify for a variance.
I think his thinking is he doesn't have to wait and re-advertise.
So that's the issue.
Decides it's gonna be a variance, like on these
So
accessory.
that's the
things.
reason why they do it.
I think that's the reason he does it, yeah.
So all of a sudden he said, sorry, the height, because of height issue, you create a new non-conformity, or because of height issue, it has to be done on a variance. They can just come back in the following month, or whatever, or not have to reapply, or they can argue that point that night. Okay, so that's why they do it.
Yeah.
Okay.
And also, I think he always wants a special permit, again, because it's more defensible.
Yeah.
That's his preference too. I mean, he knows better than I do. He's a zoning lawyer. I'm not a zoning lawyer. But, variances are hard to sustain on a challenge in court. Courts don't like variances. I remember when I was at law school, I went to University of Connecticut, so it's Connecticut zoning law. But it was a variance granted for a swimming pool, and it went to the Connecticut Supreme Court, and the court said, no justification for the variance, move the pool. It's an in-ground pool. How do you move an in-ground pool? Well, and an even more egregious one, it was a house. And the court said, too bad, no justification for variance, move the house. You would think the courts, now this was a long time ago, maybe people were meaner then, I don't know.
It sounds delightful.
So,
Yeah.
anyway, what do you guys want to do?
I'm gonna nominate Brian.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Well, do you want a discussion? No? Aye.
I want to
Chairman.
discuss it.
Congratulations, Brian.
Congratulations. Congratulations.
Yeah, great.
Yes.
Thank you.
And we need a clerk.
Well, obviously, Al, do you mind giving up your position as clerk for the next year?
To Dave?
Yeah.
Oh, my God. Of course I will.
You're gonna be clerk? You're gonna remain as clerk?
You're gonna take it over for the period of time that next year, right? You said you would, given the fact that we're doing a 40Bs.
Well,
You did make that mistake and say that.
I did say that, but I was hoping you might rescue me from my foolishness.
I'll stay as clerk but I would like to see you be counsel to the board.
Oh, yeah, no, I'd be happy to do that, but I'll nominate Al as clerk.
I'll second that.
All in favor? Aye?
Aye.
All right.
Good practice could be is writing your solution or the bylaws that are involved and presenting it to him beforehand, to get his take on it, see if you're on point or not.
No, I think that's a very good idea.
Not that we all should do that as well, but. just,
No, I-
like you said.
I'm very serious. We all have to dive into this thing
Yeah, absolutely.
a lot more than we necessarily may be right now. Do you ever, or are we allowed to, if we look at a site and then go back and ask the building commissioner, by the way, can I just go back over this with you, why you turned it down, or discuss it with the building commissioner? You allowed to do that at all?
Do we have one?
I'm
Well,
just waiting.
you may have a building commissioner again, but
I'm sorry, say the question again?
if reviewing a case
Right.
before the meeting, can we, at times, we felt like it was necessary, ask the building commissioner questions regarding the code or the application of the code when he turned it down?
Not if it's in reference to a specific case.
Okay, you
That
can't.
would violate the open meeting law.
I thought it was a violation if there was more than two people on the board discussing it.
Well, but if there's two people, that's the violation.
Yeah, but he's not on the board,
Who?
the building commissioner.
Well, yeah, I think you could ask
Um,
building commissioner for
You can ask,
interpretation, why did you do this?
yeah, you can ask him why, but I don't think you can discuss aspects of the case with him.
Just want to check,
Yeah.
want to check.
Well,
I
what would be
think
the
if you
difference
can ask him
between-
the basis for his decision, or, you know, specifics about the finding, you know, how many square feet, or whatever the question is, that's okay. But I don't think you should discuss the merits of the case,
Okay.
or
just-
whether he thinks, you know, this really qualifies for a special permit. That's getting into case discussion. I think that would violate the open meeting law.
So ahead of time, and I had already, if it, I always thought about that as far as preparing a decision up front. Is it a violation if all of a sudden I'm showing it to you prior to the meeting?
My view is we should never discuss any of the specifics of any case outside of the meeting.
Okay, so preparing something ahead of time, besides just preparing it ahead of time, before, is nothing that can go in front of your eyes.
You talk about it,
At the meeting.
not in the case, but generically.
Like we did tonight.
Right.
yes.
Correct, so
Right.
you could propose that, any of
Okay.
us could propose that in a generic sense.
Right,
But what I didn't want to do was with the Cross Street case pending, have this discussion, because it applied directly to that case. I thought that's dangerous. So I think you've got to be, I've never done it, so let's say, I don't know, whatever a case might be, I've never sent a memo out, hey, in this case, guys, look at, you know, this section, this section, this section of the bylaw. I've been afraid to do that. I don't think that's a good thing to do. It's getting,
yeah, I would say, I mean, first of all, the commissioners already referred to sections of the bylaw, and in the write-up by the attorney, they refer to those sections as well. So they've given you a roadmap to look at.
So if you had sent out something in an email saying, you know, in preparation for this, you might want to bone up on these two sections.
it might be okay, but you know, why go through the aggravation if somebody files an open meeting complaint against you, and then it's gotta go up to the state attorney general, it's in the newspaper.
Oh, absolutely, I can see it. So ahead of time, if I prepared something, once the case got called, at that point, could I slide that review of how the flow of the decision should go? And you can't do that either.
Yeah, I think you could, when you have board discussion, you could say, okay, I've got this, you know,
Okay.
after you hear the
Okay.
presentation of the case, I think you should give it to the applicant though, so they can look at
Sure.
it and, you
Okay,
know,
I understand.
comment also.
But that's the point of us having our discussion though during the meeting, to get what you're suggesting out
Yeah,
and see if we reach some sort of consensus.
Exactly,
You know?
exactly. And I'm gonna give you a whole package of
Yeah.
info and forms and all that stuff that you'll need,
Yes, yes.
Mr. Chairman.
All
Take
right.
care, Dave. Have a good one.
Bye, Dave, take care.
On those packet of forms and so forth, is it, do you have it just, I mean, a lot of the stuff you already sent us, often attachments and emails over the last few years. Whatever you might be giving me, is that also on your computer, so you can at some point gradually send me the attachments?
I will have to look. I can't say absolutely. Things tend to disappear sometimes
No, I
from my
understand.
computer for no apparent reason. I hate electronic stuff. I don't half understand it. But in any event, yeah, a lot of it I've got, and I'll send you, like the meeting protocol and, oh, I don't know, I've got the procedures for when you go into executive session, which we haven't done in 100 years. But if you get a litigation, there's a whole procedure of how you go into executive session, so then you can discuss the pending litigation. and then there's a procedure for coming out of executive session. It's all, I've got it all laid out.
Yeah, we've never had an executive session.
You guys haven't, I have, in days gone by. I don't think, Al, you were on then.
No.
I wasn't chairman then. It was-
Yeah, so you can never have an executive session to discuss a case that's before you. It has to be.
No, it was a litigation
Yeah, any
case.
type of, okay.
Or if there was some kind of personnel issue, you can go into executive session. The only reason we went in maybe 2 or 3 times was because of litigation against the board, where we got a report from outside, from town council, where the chairman wanted to read it, let everybody know what was going on. So I've got stuff like that, I'll get it to you. If I don't have it in the computer, I can scan it and send it to you.
Well, you just give it to print it out, that's fine, yeah, whatever you wanna. Scanning's a pain in the neck.
Okay.
Okay, so I can,
I have one final question. With regard to the changes in the bylaws, where exactly is that on the website? You looked it up.
I couldn't find it.
I couldn't either.
I found an area, but I went to hit it,
Yeah.
I found a change in the bylaws online.
Oh,
And then I went to access it, and it brought me no place. So
Yeah.
there was going for the planning board, I did find
Yeah.
bylaw changes. But you click on it, and nothing happens.
Yeah, because we had an entire section disappear about 2 years ago. They had changed it, the planning board had. And I don't think anybody on the board actually knew about it. I think it was.
Is it possible that we have, when Alicia has time, we just get,
And I
just-
know my book is not up to date.
can we just get updated books?
what's that?
Okay, as the chair now, or in chair as of July 1st, because you're chair through the end of this month, right?
I have no idea.
Yeah,
We didn't
the-
discuss that. Do you want me to? I don't care.
yeah, no, I was saying that,
Okay.
I'm assuming,
There's only one case, so I'll be happy.
yeah, June's the last month.
Okay,
So as of July 1st,
You know, dummy.
unless a 40B comes in, then it's you.
yeah,
The cardinal rule is, remember, were you at the last one, the 40B?
no,
You gotta keep control. You're the boss, and you dictate to people what's gonna happen.
and I
Let me
appreciate that.
just tell you what he does. I think it's a great idea. If you have, as we did on others, you have a number of people who want to speak. And it's amazing how many people want to repeat what the
Yeah.
person in front said. He gives them 5 minutes, and he makes it known that the next speaker has to speak to the subject matter, but not repeating what the last speaker said. That way there, otherwise, this thing can go on for
Yeah.
weeks.
I usually let 6 or 7 of them, but then they start to get repetitive, and that's when I say, okay, yes, everybody can speak, but
But you
we've
open
already
it.
heard all of these arguments, anything new that somebody wants to add.
But you open it with that statement prior to anybody
And I've got a
coming up to the
statement I will
mic.
give you that you read to people that basically says, we know you don't like 40B, don't talk to us. Go to the state legislature, because 40B is the law, we have to administer it, and here's the only basis on which we can lawfully turn it down, and I've got the whole thing written out.
I mean, we're gonna have a target on our back on this one, but that's whatever can be.
No, I mean, keep
Yeah.
talking right here, it won't be in the back, you'll be.
You're right in front
Yeah,
of it.
Yeah, they
But-
want to hear it, but you just have to,
Oh,
be
absolutely, no,
very
I understand.
firm. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've had some experience controlling a meeting, but, yeah, absolutely, those are great ideas. But can I request, the town to get us all, particularly, now you're on board now in your first year, you would have got an updated book. So
Not necessarily. So this is what I got. I got those two. The last one was, there's one in 18, one in 19 that was updated. I had an old book from
This is the same one we had.
June of 18,
Yeah.
and then those were 2 things, and there was a packet of inserts.
I've got 2010, 2013, 2017.
Yeah, I have things that are 10, I have things that are 18, I have things that are 19.
Right.
I didn't get one at all.
You
You
didn't
didn't
have
get a
one of
book
these?
at all?
Oh, yeah, how do you do the job?
All I go off of what is given to me and I look it up.
You didn't,
Yeah.
you didn't get a whole book when you came
No.
out? Okay.
Because we got
Well, we
this
gotta resolve
one
that
back in
problem.
18.
Yeah, you need to get one of these.
Yeah, the only,
That's great.
these all
I've
came
just
off
been
of the,
compiling everything that I have
Excuse
on
me?
my computer and just
Yeah.
like flip through it when I have it.
No, this is
these
it.
came off of the bylaw on the website, which is the most current. And
That's what I look
behind,
at. Not that it's easy, but
behind the provisions, I didn't print them here, but
yeah, I
there's,
prefer paper.
some of them have a little parenthetical with the revision dates. It's on the, you know, the online bylaw, and it will show you if you gotta work at it, because you gotta look at each section down below to see if there's a parenthetical.
So your table of contents, right at the
tells you
front, your
revision.
table of contents, bottom, what's the date on it?
December 1st, 2017.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that was, there's been 2 updates since then. That was the book I had
Yeah.
originally.
By updates, like, just 2 sections
Right
or?
here, see, right there, they give you a table of contents, and they say, take out these pages and replace them with these pages. This is like,
You gotta print
they have
pages
these quality books and procedures, standard operating procedures, this is how they update them. They go through and they say this section, so what you end up doing is ripping out entire sections and
Yes.
replacing entire sections. So mine
Yeah.
has dates all over the place,
So,
10s and
Mine
12s
is
and
1/1 of
19s.
17. The table of contents is 12/1 of 18.
Mine's, I have May of 19. There was an update since then.
I have, again, I'm December of 17.
Yeah. And so they had these, and they can, I'm sure they're electronic, and they can just be printed off on the 3-hole paper.
Well,
I'd ask for them.
I'm gonna make a request to Alicia that I get a new printout of the whole book, just so I can,
Yeah,
Yeah, I
particularly
think
for,
she said she'd be willing to do it, but
Yeah.
remember, it's not gonna stay current very long. Because whatever bylaw provisions were passed by town meeting, and there were some, they're up sitting with the Attorney General's office, and it'll be a while before the Attorney General reviews them and says, okay, and then they come back down to the town.
We can
So
keep
this
each
thing
other
is-
accountable and just say, hey, do you guys get this new one? If not, make sure you throw it in your book, like this is the pages I replaced, so as long as we keep each other accountable.
Alicia,
Yeah.
she should be, that'd be one of her tasks, you would think, is to make sure we're up to date. Because she's the one that should see these things coming in.
Or at least send a document saying, print these and replace these.
So they're available. I don't know if there's been an update since 19, but my guess is there's not because of COVID.
But there will be. Well, I
There
don't know
will
if
be.
they've updated them, but they, at the last town meeting, there were zoning provisions passed by the town.
Like, for instance, there was one last year on the multifamily housing
I think
that
so.
affected the Royal.
That's
yes,
right.
That's right.
there was a zoning
That,
change.
And
that
that-
was a change,
Yeah, and that's been approved.
and I'm sure
Yeah.
that's been since this.
Right, but that's,
So there's
the
several
more
changes.
recent changes don't really affect us. That only was for the planning board. We've got no jurisdiction over that. the
Oh,
way
so
they
that
wrote
was
it.
not a zoning change.
It's a zoning change, but the planning board has sole jurisdiction of that.
But that came up, Dave, because when we looked at it, they needed 10,000 square feet per apartment. And then it went before the planning board because we denied it, based upon,
Well, we were going to, they withdrew
Yeah.
it, yeah.
But if it came up again, we would have to have that regulation and how it's put into place to make a decision.
Well, it actually wouldn't come up because now it would be
Yeah,
held
yeah,
strictly by the planning
So it
board.
would never have to come up because it would
No.
be,
And it was written in a way to get around all of our objections.
I noticed that. So,
but they were the.
so why haven't they started construction on that? I guess litigation.
No, it's in litigation. Winstead is it Winstead that went against them?
Yes.
The Winstead, he had an owner and one other owner, and the guy that owned the Winstead formerly owned the.
Right, yeah.
He's litigating against it. I mean, I think it's a terrible proposal. With
I
that many housing units in that little facility.
I can't just, yeah, I absolutely agree with you.
And my big concern was the parking, and you know, sure as shooting, the residents are gonna be parking in the library lot, which isn't big enough now.
Yeah, it was only 26 spaces, I think.
Right, there's not nearly enough for the number of
But
units.
it's enough by the bylaw. The zoning
Yeah.
said it was enough.
Yeah, 'cause you had
Because they changed
2
it.
spaces per.
No, before they did.
No, no, when we saw it, that's right.
They had enough.
They had enough.
Yeah.
They had enough,
As long as nobody had a visitor.
yes, they did have enough, but there were a lot of other
Yeah.
provisions that have failed on, because they needed a variance or,
Oh, no, it's a lot
Several
of
variances.
things, but it had nothing to do with parking.
but I still didn't really care about the number of spaces, because given that location, my view was there weren't enough spaces, so, yeah, they could point to
The zoning said they
26.
had enough spaces.
Well, maybe, but if they wanted a variance, they were gonna have to come up with a lot more. Or actually, what I wanted to do was put restrictions on them, and then if the neighbors, if they parked in the library, the town will be able to assess them and sue them to get the money at their expense.
Who's
So
gonna-
they would
who's
have to
gonna-
pay our lawyer to sue them.
Who's gonna enforce that?
But,
They park in the library, who's gonna enforce that?
Parking
the
lot.
town, the way I was gonna propose it, because I had all those conditions where the town was gonna be able to do it through the town's attorney, paid for by them, by the Royal. I don't think they ever would have agreed to it,
No.
but that's okay, then we would have turned it down anyway, so.
Yeah, I mean,
Kathy Muller was on the board then, and she and I were both adamantly opposed to it.
Yes, yes.
it was, you know,
So it wasn't never, they were never getting a variance based upon
Right.
their proposal. And
they going for a variance, when they going for, they're not special permit?
Oh, definitely a variance.
It was 175 square feet, the smallest one?
What's that?
It was 175 square feet, the smallest apartment?
I don't
I mean,
remember now, but it was.
It was
it
absurdly
was
small.
Mighty, mighty small.
Yeah.
And that was Kathy's.
And the two, yeah, she was all over that one.
Yeah.
Why, but you say they might be small relative to what? The ones around the corner? On 39?
Well, I think any apartment, 175 square feet.
They were efficient, I think there was an efficiency apartment.
Yeah, I mean, that's.
Then they had 1 bedroom, then it was a 2-bedroom. And the 2-bedroom, I think, was.
They were small too.
Yeah, they were very small, but they met the code.
I'm not sure why that matters.
It didn't matter to me, it mattered to her. I have many, many other issues, but,
Yeah.
No.
That bothered Kathy.
Town needs more housing, but that I thought was obscene, trying to get all this stuff from that place.
yeah, and they threatened that their lawyer was out of Boston, and he was very aggressive. And Dean really got mad at him, remember? Dean really got mad at him and pulled
It's
him
hard
up
to
short.
believe.
Yeah, he was inappropriate behavior for Harwich, in my
He
opinion.
wasn't on the board for that.
I thought he still was, no?
He basically, we overlapped one meeting.
Okay,
I
well,
came
maybe
in,
not
he
then.
resigned at that
Yeah.
same meeting.
He said, you came in, he goes, that's it, I'm out of here.
Maybe I'm
He's the one that pulled me in.
All right,
He's
maybe
my
I'm
neighbor.
misremembering then.
No, I said, you wanna end the meeting?
Hmm?
You wanna end the meeting?
Right now? Yes.
Done.
Motion to adjourn the meeting.
Was it an official meeting?
I'll move
second
to
it.
adjourn. Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Adjourn. Okay, yes, good.
All right.
Thank you.
Congratulations.